to Vicarious Voyages. I'm Sandra Harvey, and I'd like for you to welcome a very special guest for today, Chef Elizabeth Dixon. She teaches here at Bossier Parish Community College's School of Culinary Arts. So can you tell us what you do here?
Yes, I teach students how to become chefs, teach them all the basics of cooking.
Well, wonderful. Then you know a little bit about our vocabulary word today, which is culinary. Can you tell us what that means?
Yes, culinary means the art of cooking.
Well, good. That brings us to our most delicious story, the King of Pizza.
Join us now for The King of Pizza, a magical story about the world's favorite food, written by Sylvester Sanzari with illustrations by John E. Hurst. There once was a king who loved to eat, and he could eat more than any man in his kingdom. By special decree, supper was served 2 hours early so that the king would have enough time for extra desserts. Renowned chefs from the 4 corners of the world came to his court to prepare their award-winning recipes. There were so many chefs that he never had to eat the same meal twice. Each evening, as the king sat down at his long banquet table, the palace chefs would parade out of the kitchen, carrying silver trays over their heads, and their voices would resound through the dining hall.
Bon appetit, our Lord and King. Fine food and drink is what we bring. Rare and secret recipes, rich, delicious specialties. So to your health and to your wealth, bon appetit, long may you eat.
And so the king feasted on exotic foods from all the fields and farms of the earth. He might begin with a giant salad of moist green leaves from an enchanted rainforest dressed with yellow yak yogurt. An enormous crock of crocodile tears soup would make him weep with pleasure.
More!
He shouted after finishing a striped and spotted stew made of wild tiger and leopard.
More! More!
He wailed as the chefs brought forth tubfuls of glazed jellyfish in octopus ink sauce garnished with twinkling starfish. Yet no matter how delicious the food tasted, nor how much he ate, the king was never satisfied. Each night he lay awake in his great feather bed, listening to his stomach rumble and grumble.
How do my subjects keep from starving when even their king can't get enough to eat?
He asked the queen one sleepless night. The queen could think of no proper answer. After all, she had always lived in the palace, surrounded by gardens full of magical fountains and talking birds from the faraway jungles of America. What could she know about life beyond the castle walls? All that night the king tossed in his bed, biting his pillow and dreaming of more things to eat. He awoke very early the next morning, his mouth stuffed with goose down and his stomach emptier than ever. Suddenly, an idea popped into his head with such force that it knocked his crown right off. Quietly, so as not to wake the queen, he put on an old robe and made some tears in it. Then, with the help of his royal pet monkey Guido, he knotted together a bunch of old sheets and tied them to the window jamb. Carefully, he lowered himself into the garden, rubbed some mud on his hands and clothes, and silently stole past the sleeping palace guards. And so, disguised as a beggar, the king headed down narrow cobblestone lanes toward the city. Soon he found himself walking behind a brightly painted donkey cart laden with fruit and vegetables on its way to the great square that was the marketplace. The sun had not yet risen, but already a parade of shoppers pinched and poked its way from stall to pushcart. Vendors shouted prices and enticed customers with songs in praise of their produce. The king laughed to see so much food as he touched and sniffed a carnival of edible delights. There were strings of red and green peppers, wreaths of papery garlic, round loaves of fresh-baked bread, and sweet cakes filled with fruit. Pyramids of oranges and lemons the size of fists stood among crisp forests of broccoli. Alley cats kept watchful eyes over barrels of shiny fish and eels that swam in the early morning light. Baskets bulged with fat eggplants, chubby zucchini, and plump tomatoes. Wine flowed from wooden casks, and large cheeses swung like church bells in the shop windows. The king inhaled all the exciting aromas that floated in the breeze. He was glad to see that his subjects had so much good food to choose from. Still, he was disappointed not to find anything unique or delicious enough to satisfy his own enormous appetite. Just then, the king noticed an old woman hunched over a pile of wooden crates. Her long, bony fingers picked carefully through lumps of bruised fruit, limp vegetables, and day-old bread.
Excuse me,
said the king.
but why would you want to eat leftovers when there's so much fresh food to choose from?
The woman's eyes were deep and full of sorrow, as if she truly knew what it meant to go to sleep hungry.
If I spent what little money I have on fresh food, I'd never have enough to eat,
she told him.
So I use what everyone else passes by, and I never go hungry. Besides, it tastes just as good. Here,
she said, offering him a brown spotted peach.
No, thank you,
said the beggar king, wincing at the sight of the overripe fruit.
If you were really hungry, you'd be more than thankful,
the old woman scolded. She lifted the satchel of food onto her thin shoulders and turned her back to the king.
And who said beggars can't be choosy?
He heard her mumble as she went on her way.
but I really am hungry.
The king assured himself.
I am,
he said as he wandered along the crowded docks where fishermen hauled in their catch from the great bay. Suddenly he detected a new, spicy scent that overpowered all the rest. It trickled into his nostrils and tickled his taste buds. So strong was the aroma that it seemed to lift him off the ground and carry him through the streets of the marketplace until his nose bumped against the door of a small shop. Above the doorway was a sign that read, Salvatore's Pizzeria, and in smaller letters, Pizza Fit for a King.
Pizza!
The king said to himself.
What is pizza?
The rich odor made him dizzy as he stumbled inside, where a crowd of customers stood before a great wood-burning oven. In front of the oven was Salvatore, the handsome young pizza chef. Brushing back his thick, wavy hair, he tied on an apron and began to make a giant pie. First, he poured olive oil on a lump of dough and squished it with his fingers until it became smooth and slippery. Next, he punched the dough with his strong fists and spread it with his knuckles into a flat wheel. Then, twirling the doughy wheel on his fingertips, he flung it up in the air and caught it on the palms of his hands. He decorated the pie with thick red sauce, a fistful of oregano, and tiny half-moons of cheese, and with a long wooden paddle, slipped it into the oven.
Bravo! Bravo!
The king applauded. He was so hungry that he could hardly keep his tongue in his mouth.
I'll take that one,
he ordered. Salvatore looked him over from head to toe.
Do you have any money?
He asked quietly.
No, I haven't,
replied the beggar king, suddenly remembering his disguise.
But if your pizza is truly fit for a king, I will reward you handsomely.
This beggar thinks he's a king.
Someone shouted above the laughter of the crowd.
Sure, he's a king, all right,
another voice added.
the king of rags.